Hey everybody, how we doing out there in salary cap auction land? I am Drew Davenport. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for being here for the second annual Salary Cap Summit. I couldn't be more pumped up. I wasn't sure how this was going to go last year. And I'll tell you what, it went amazing. It went better than I could have hoped. And it gave me, uh, the thought that this is something we need to be doing more often. And I want to make that an important part of the conversation tonight. What do you all want to see out there? What do you want to do when it comes to auctions? Do you want best ball tournaments? Do you want quicker ways to do auctions? Do you want there's a lot of ideas I have, but tonight is about putting auctions front and center. And I hope that all of you in the chat can drop in, talk about what you like, what you don't like, maybe why, hey, I've never done one before, and here's why I've never done one before. So this is all stuff that I think that we just have to continue to talk about, because if we don't bring it front and center, if we don't continue to make it part of the conversation, then it's easy to push auctions aside. It's easy to put the salary cap folks in a corner and say, hey, here's your article, spend all your money, and and go get some stars and scrubs or make a balanced build. I mean, how many times have you heard that kind of advice? I know it drives me up a wall, and I know that for the people out there who do a lot of auctions, do a lot of salary cap drafts, that's got to grate on you as well. So what we're trying to do these next 3 nights is bring the format front and center and have some fun, and also shine the spotlight on what I believe is the best way to draft teams in fantasy football, bar none. I just believe it's the best way, and I'll never believe differently. So we're going to give everyone a little bit of a chance to get in here so that we can see what's going on with the very first couple of picks. We don't want people to miss the first couple of picks. And and I just SummerSlam on the TV and the salary cap on the phone. Yeah, love it, man. Thank you so much for showing up. And hey, I'll tell you what, we've got good drafters here. Every single one of the drafters tonight and tomorrow night is from the Patreon network. These folks are one of a couple hundred people on earth who are listening to me talk auctions all the time in the off season, and they're getting stuff that nobody else is getting. So I think they're going to put on a good show, and I'm very excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see what's going to happen early in the draft, especially because you know me. I rail against some things that I think people do wrong early in salary cap drafts, and I'm not saying that there is any one perfect way to play the game. So I want to stress that, because I'm going to give out a lot of advice tonight. And folks, I'm going to be running this FWM for 2+ hours by myself, no guests, and we're going to be just going hardcore auction stuff. And I'm going to say some stuff that's probably going to irritate you. Maybe somebody in the room is going to get a little offended because I said something about a pick that they had. I don't want people to take anything personally here. I'm just giving you my opinions about what I see happening in front of me. And let me just say something. Auction drafts are difficult, and being in the room is the hardest. And you can't sit there and judge and say this person should have done this or that, because you're not in the room. And it's tough. It's easy to do. It's like looking at a poker hand from the outside and you say, this guy has this and this guy has this. But when you're in it, it's tough. Okay, so give all these folks some grace, but also would love to hear your feedback about what they're doing, and would love to hear feedback about what you think is important about salary cap drafts and auction, how we bring auction to the forefront. So I think that's going to do it. We got some viewers coming in here, and that's what we want to see, because we want to get this thing started with the first half of the first round. We know is going to be super interesting, and we know that we're going to see some different strategies, and I encourage that. I encourage outside the box thinking with your early nominations. So one of the drafters is listening to the stream, which I realize is the rub of doing this live. But let's get this party started. What do you say? We've got 12 drafters in the room ready to go. They're going to play this out, folks. This league will be played out. So this is not a mock, all right? This is the real deal. We're getting started in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and there we go. The draft is underway. So I'm just going to go through and talk with you about what I see happening, what my impressions are. It's not always going to be perfect, what I see, and whether I'm able to keep up, that's going to be difficult too. So I just give me a little bit of grace there, but it's worked well in the past. And so we have one of the things I think is absolutely hilarious about doing online auctions is seeing the projections in the room. And right now, Jahmyr Gibbs is projected as an $81 player. That's crazy to me. But we are seeing the price on Jahmyr Gibbs go up quickly here. We're into the 70s. And this is a trend I've been talking about with Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. We have two guys that are the clear-cut favorites this year. And we know that when we get in an auction, it's going to get up there. If it doesn't get into the 60s in your home leagues, I'd be shocked. But it can hit 70, and that's what we've got here. We've got the first player off the board here is Jahmyr Gibbs for $72 to team number 4. That's Seeliger in team number 4. 72 is what I'm seeing. That's not crazy. That's what I'm seeing. So I think that you have to be prepared that if you're going to get one of these guys, your par sheet's got to say $70 on it. And hey, if you get them for 64, boom, you're off and running. I don't love going for those two top guys. That's not my thing. But if it's your thing, budget that $70. I mean, you know your league better than I do. Par sheets are about your league too. It's not just about what you think about the player. So Gibbs at 72. Now the number 2 nomination is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Love this play from the 2-hole here because it's a lower ranked receiver than the top 3 or 4 guys, maybe 3, 4, 5 guys that people like. And putting that type of a player up sometimes can get you the sitting down bonus that I talk about all the time. I think this room, just like my Kings Classic room, is too sharp for a sitting down bonus. Now, I could be wrong, but that's, I think, what we're seeing quickly here. Gibbs for 72. St. Brown ends up going for 53. And this is what I'm talking about. I don't feel like that we're going to get the sitting down bonus here. And St. Brown at 53, I think, kind of proves that point a little bit so far. We've got James Cook up now. He's at $47. And I'll refrain from giving my opinion on the prices until the players are sold. But I love the St. Brown nomination because if you think that this room's going to be a little hot, then you try to get a guy that's a little bit lower down in that first tier. And then 53 for St. Brown is right about where I'm seeing him go. So that doesn't feel like much of a deal in and of itself. But if the Gibbs price is any indicator of what they're going to spend on Chase, on Puka, and those guys, St. Brown may look like a really good price here in a little bit. We don't know. We're going to see how the pressure stacks up. Now, the third nomination was James Cook. He ends up going for $50. Boy, again, that's really hitting the mark right here. So just to put this out there, you guys are hearing Sleeper? Oh, that's horrendous. Yeah, thank you for telling me that. Nobody wants to hear that. So I thought that was coming in, supposed to be coming into my headphones, but yeah, that's awful. Thank you for telling me that. Sorry I didn't see that earlier. So I will figure out how to, mute that screen audio. How about that? You guys still hear it out there? Because I said mute screen audio, but it's still coming out of my speakers. So, okay. Well, let me work on that. But what I wanted to comment on with James Cook is, okay, so you guys can't hear it anymore. Okay, perfect. All right. So what I wanted to comment on with James Cook in this, what I'm seeing in this room so far, this is a tough room, folks. Cook for 50, that's right on what I'm seeing. That's dead on what I'm seeing. Ken Walker for 45. Again, maybe a couple bucks high, but there's a lot of steam for Ken Walker recently and what he's going to do. Maybe catch some passes. And, okay. Yeah, guys, I don't know exactly how to turn it all the way down. I hit screen mute, but it doesn't appear to be completely muted. I don't know why that is. But I'm going to keep working on that. So anyway, so the bottom line is, in a tough room like this, you may not get a lot of early deals. So what you just have to be doing is, I'm always in favor of being aggressive early and saying, let's go get one of those players early. And if you listen to a recent episode, I believe it was my 723 episode on the 5 stages of an auction. I tell you that a lot of times you want to be aggressive early and you want to get in there and get two players that are first and second round talent. And you want to get them before really you get out of the first 2 rounds. Because most of the time, the top 24 players are going to be nominated in those first 2 rounds. And you can't afford to have nobody most of the time. Now, sometimes you can. You definitely, every room's different. We know that. I'm going to say that a million times tonight. But I think that what you have to think about in a tight room like this, and I'm not even saying tight may be the wrong word, in a room like this that actually is very on top of what the value should be. That's the best way to say it. These people really know the values. We're not getting any values here, right? So you can't let it go, though. You can't just go 2 rounds and not get a top player. So we just had Luther Burden go for 26. I think that's an interesting price. I'm seeing mid 20s on him, so 26 lines up right there. It's maybe a couple bucks more than I see recently. And then we got Bijan Robinson go for 70. Again, we set the market with Gibbs at 72, Robinson at 70s, right in line there. Folks, this is going to be, I'm trying to mute this room. But this is going to be one of those drafts where it may be hard. We got managers in the room who know the values, and this is a tough room so far. Okay. All right, so everyone's saying it's good. All right, I'm going to quit messing with it then. Yeah, I don't know why when I click mute, it doesn't mute, but hopefully you weren't hearing the double now. So, so what we've got developing here is something that I tell everyone to remember, is that in the first couple of rounds, 2 to 3 rounds at least, but count on it for the first 2, you're going to see all the top players get nominated. And that's why I always preach all the time, like, don't spend your time nominating those top guys if they don't work for you. Because what's the point of nominating a guy? Let's say I really like, or I really don't like Jonathan Taylor this year. So you nominate him early. Well, somebody's going to nominate Jonathan Taylor pretty early, folks. Like, why do that? What is that gaining you? And I understand the argument that people make about we're wasting money. I've debunked that before. If you follow me, you know I can't stand that. But I think that what it comes down to is you have a goal when you go into the draft, right? Or you should have a goal about what you're doing. And I don't feel like it matters to nominate one of those top players because it's not pushing towards your goal and somebody's going to do it for you. So what I'd love for somebody to tell me, hey, this is why I do it, or this is a reason that has really made sense to me over the years, because I don't hear that very often. So in fact, I don't really ever hear it ever. I don't hear many people push back on that. The idea that I keep preaching, which is that nominating players you don't like that are elite early on, it doesn't do anything for you because somebody will do it for you. Somebody will nominate that player for you. They just will. And that's what's happening right here. Luther Burden is the only one that you could really consider to be outside the top 40 picks in a typical snake draft. Everyone else has been a top-level player. Let me update you on a couple prices. Jamar Chase went for $66. Puka Nacua went for $63. Now, here's the conversation that we had a little bit ago, and that conversation was what's going to happen to these prices in a minute relative to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, if I'm in this room here and I see the price on St. Brown, I'm not that excited about $53, right? But Alexander, are you saying the sound's off? Everyone good? So, why is it saying one nomination? Okay, yeah. All right. So, can everyone hear me, Alexander? I don't know what you're talking about, saying people can't hear me. If I'm suddenly not on the stream, somebody please let me know. Okay, thanks, Chad. Yeah, all right, thank you. I don't know what Alexander's talking about. What I'm talking about here is we get St. Brown at a price for 53. Now, if I'm in that room, I'm thinking to myself, well, that's not what I want to pay. I want to pay 49. I want to pay 47, maybe 50 or whatever. But, and I think it ends up being a good deal because what I said a few minutes ago was, what's 53 going to look like in a little bit when some of these other guys come up? And I think that 53 is going to look a lot different in a little while. Here we are with Chase at 66, Puka at 63. We've got two guys over 70. Amon-Ra St. Brown is looking like the best value on the board so far. Now, since then, we've also had Devon Achane go off for 41. I tell you what, folks, if you're a Devon Achane person this year, you need to have him on every single one of your auction teams because his price continues to fall. And I thought it was just going to be too expensive at the beginning of auction season. And yeah, Jeff is saying glad Chase went for 66. He's my keeper for 48. And yeah, I say this a lot about keepers. So let me finish this. Let me close this Achane thought. But I want to comment on keepers because I hear this a lot, and it's a good topic. Beck says, "What's the starting lineup?" Yeah, quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and a flex. You do start a kicker and a D as well. This stream tonight is meant to mirror the settings for typical home leagues. Okay, so I'm not trying to do anything fancy here. Tomorrow night we're doing the super flex with so it'll be 2 flexes, 1 super flex, 1 other flex, no kickers and defenses. So anyway, back to the Achane point. Just if you are if this is something that you that's not what I wanted to do. If you are picking up in my mind, early in the draft, Achane makes a perfect nomination. Now, I'm not in on him, but everyone, this is what I talk about with the magnification effect in auctions, because the train is running downhill, and it's just a runaway, like, we hate Devon Achane party. And at some point, you have to say to yourself, this guy's worth this price. And 41, man, he's getting in that range where I really want him. Now, he went for 34 in the Kings Classic the other day, but that's a little bit deeper. The money doesn't go to the top as much in that league. But Achane, man, I tell you what, if he drops into the 30s in your league, I just think you got to take a chance because you can budget to have him then as a cheaper wide receiver or RB1, and then you can go off with another RB2 who's a little bit more expensive. And if Achane hits, that's the kind of like championship move that we're talking about here. So I think it's important to just not let the hate get too far, because that ends up creating these little value pockets that maybe shouldn't be there in an auction. Because I think, let's talk like a guy like Bucky Irving. He's the perfect kind of guy that I'm talking about. I don't like Bucky Irving. I don't want Bucky Irving on my team. But if the guy goes for $14, like, why are we saying no to that? Because, that's a perfect RB3 for really cheap, or a cheap RB2. So, all right. Yeah. Wanted to get him under 40. Yeah, I'm with you. I want to see that Achane price in the upper 30s. 41's totally fine. I think it's right on. Again, this room is just super solid, you guys. This is a tough room. Hey, what's up, Norem? I don't know. What's your name, man? But yeah, let me go back to the keeper conversation, and then I want to update you on a few prices here. We're falling a little bit behind in the draft, but the keeper conversation is an interesting one for me, because a lot of times people will come to me and, oh, hey man, welcome back. Yeah. The 2 QB will draft tomorrow night at 7:00. He says he was in the 2 QB league last year. So thanks for being here. Yeah. So what ends up happening with keepers is a lot of the top guys get kept, even though the prices aren't that good. And so what I tell people all the time is, if you look at that board and you think to yourself, man, there's not going to be any elite guys left. So let's say you have Chase and he's going to be 54. Now, this guy's talking about having Chase for 48. Love that price. But let's say you have Chase for 54 and you think to yourself, there's going to be no elite wide receivers out there. And let's say your other keeper is like borderline. Oh, I got David Montgomery for 14. Okay, well, that's a nice price for Montgomery, but is it that great? And do you care about Montgomery that much that you can't buy him back for 22? So I think a lot of times the keeper decision gets a little bit weird because you're trying to decide, hey, do I just want the elite player or do I want the actual really nice deal? I'm thinking about that in one of mine where I have Parker Washington for $1. And I think, okay, well, what's it going to cost me to get him back? Well, the steam keeps rising, but sometimes it's better like, hey, let's just throw Parker Washington back and I'll keep Bijan Robinson. So the Chase conversation is interesting. If you have him for 54, it's not a great price, but it's better than he's going to go for this year. And also, sometimes it isn't about that. Sometimes it's about just locking up an elite player. And that's a lot of times what keeper decisions come down to in an auction. But you kind of need to look at, hey, what's everyone else paying for before the draft if you get that luxury? Sometimes you show up and you find out at the last minute. But okay, let's get back to the draft. I want to talk a little bit about some things that have happened here recently. I'm trying to do 8 things at once here. But okay, so we've had Emeka Egbuka go for 34. A.J. Brown went for 48. Rashee Rice went for 37. And let's see, one more. Jefferson went for 51. Okay, so let me say those again. A.J. Brown for 48, Rashee Rice for 37, Egbuka for 34, and Justin Jefferson for 51. Now, I don't know what the heck's going to happen with Jefferson this year. I really don't. I have this fear of Kyler Murray frustrating me. Like, anybody listening knows that I don't love Kyler Murray. But I just have this fear of having no Justin Jefferson because I think Kyler Murray is a much different quarterback than we saw last year with J.J. McCarthy. So I'm scared to not have any of him. But I also don't love going into the 50s for him. I'm a little nervous about him. And if you had to ask me $2 less for Jefferson or $2 more for St. Brown, I'm going for the stability with St. Brown. But let me just say again, that is a preference thing. That's a personal opinion type thing because that's just my personality, that I'm not going to go for a more risky selection, even though sometimes that may end up being, being the one that pays off. Speaking of risky selections, we've got Christian McCaffrey for 54 and Bucky Irving for 20, both going to the same team. And I find that to be super interesting because these guys, if they hit, folks, I mean, this is a nice bet to make because if they hit at $74 for 2 starting running backs and you get elite production from McCaffrey, and then Irving is just good. I mean, he doesn't have to be that great to pay off for $20. Of course, I'm worried about the role, just like everyone else is. His role as a early down between the 20s grinder. I hope they give him some more opportunity to catch passes and get in at the goal line. But again, for $20, how big of a bet are you really making? So yeah, let's see here. Let's catch up and make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing here. What did we have? I wanted to comment on Bryce at 37 and A.J. Brown for 48. I like the Brown price. I'm not thrilled with the Brown price, but again, here we are in a league of people that just really, guys, if you're watching this draft right now, which I hope there's a lot of you out there doing that, this is a really great example of a room that knows how to control themselves, that knows what to do, that knows the value's cold. We're not getting any wacky pricing here. In fact, we're getting a lot of higher prices on the top guys, and we're going to see a crash at some point. I don't know when that's going to come, but if you're in the room, this is something that we talk about all the time, is looking for that crash to come. Because I think Brown and Rice are both higher than I've seen them go, yet I can't argue with the price. I really can't, because it's just because I'm seeing some prices that are different on these guys, that doesn't mean they aren't worth that. I think that's about right where they're supposed to be slotted according to this room. I think the two values shaping up for me right now are Egbuka for 34 and St. Brown for 53. Now, The problem with Egbuka is not that I don't love the player, but now in auctions you have to pay over $30 for him. I thought this was going to be a $28 guy, and I thought he was going to be my wide receiver 2 or 3 in a lot of leagues. Instead, he's sneaking up into the 30s, and you have to pay it. And hey, the same thing with A.J. Brown, where we might have thought upper 30s or low 40s would be something that we could get. This is just, it's not happening. It's not happening. And folks, we're on August 2nd here. August 2nd. And that means that by the time we get to Labor Day and we're drafting some of our home leagues, the hype on Egbuka and A.J. Brown, you know, Brown especially, we heard on the first day, May and Brown, they're not in sync. And then all we've been hearing since then is touchdown, 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 touchdown. And I don't think that you're going to get A.J. Brown in the 40s by the time we get to Labor Day. That's just how I'm feeling about it. So we'll see. We'll see. Now, we've also had some other big guys go. We've had Jackson Smith and Jigba for 55. And this is purely, I want everyone to see this. This is purely a slotted price. Okay, that slotted price means that St. Brown went for 53. So generally people in the room are not going to let Smith and Jigba go for less than 53 because he's universally ranked higher. So the sentiment in the room is we got to get him above St. Brown and then we can let him go. And that's what happens. Same thing like with Jefferson. People think JSN, he's better than Jefferson, right? So slot him in above, the price has to get up there. What else did we get here? We got a Jonathan Taylor sighting for 52. Again, a slotted price. We've got 52 on Taylor because we got 50 on Cook. So keep this in mind. Everybody who's watching, this is just a great example of how these things are supposed to go. Because I shouldn't say supposed to. Actually, a lot of times you want this to go a little bit wacky. This room's so solid, we're not getting anything wacky to talk about, frankly. Come on, guys, give me something crazy. Go nuts. But yeah, so, 52 for Taylor, that's right on. It's just right on because people like him more than Cook. I don't know why. I'm not a Taylor guy, and I did some research on Taylor recently. Boy, the second half of his season was concerning if you're in on Taylor as a first-round talent because he ran red hot on touchdowns at the beginning of the year. I think he had 5 3-touchdown games, if I'm not mistaken. And, he's a candidate to fall apart like he did in the second half last time. And I'm not saying he will because I think the 52 price is completely reasonable. I'm out on him at that price. I'd rather have Cook for a few bucks less. But, that's a personal preference thing. So you guys all know I'm a Cook fan. So, all right, JSN 55. What do we get? Hampton went for 47. Again, super solid value there. That's right at Gentie's price. So I think you're seeing something here, though, that should be very apparent to you if you don't want to spend all the money at RB1. You can get a guy like Genty, Hampton, or Walker as your RB1 for the mid to low 40s, I believe, in your home leagues. And that's, if you want to put on your par sheet $44, I think you'll have your pick of those 4 guys. And Cook is a possibility there as well, although I've seen him approach 50 in most drafts. But I think that's your sweet spot. If you don't want to spend for the top guys, your sweet spot is Cook, Hampton, Genty, and Walker, and just see which one's the cheapest. And if you really want to go cheaper, you go into the Achane range. But I just think that this is falling exactly how it's supposed to fall. And I need somebody to go crazy. Somebody go get a Diet Coke and slam that baby and give us something nuts here. Man, oh man. Chad, nice call there. He fell off. 5 3-touchdown games, I believe, Taylor had last year. All right, got to get the hit of the Diet Coke. I'm hopped up on Diet Coke. I'm sorry. Coke Zero. I got to keep the energy up because 2 hours of this by myself ain't the easiest thing. But hey, I do love to run my fat, wet mouth. My mouth is getting less fat by the day, though. Pretty soon, I'm not even going to be able to use that, but we'll keep the hashtag, right? Right, Chad? We got to keep the hashtag. All right, so Let me look here at what we got going on. And yes, Jeff, I agree. Interested to see how Barkley fits in. Now we've had our Brock Bowers sighting, and he goes for $35. I like what Team Four. I like what their idea is. They got their wide receiver one for 37, and they got the top tight end on the board for 35. Bowers right at 35 again. I can't. I'm going to say this 4,000 times. I can tell, but that's right where he should go. I mean, 35. That's my limit basically when I'm trying to get Bowers. I just hate my builds when I spend a bunch on tight end. I just do, and that's something that I've always preached. I just don't like when I go for Gibbs, Robinson, Bowers, Josh Allen, you know, Puka. I just don't like my builds, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. And maybe your league allows that a little bit better than some of the leagues that, like for instance, this league. It's difficult to pay 70 and have a build that you really like. So I'm not saying it can't happen. In fact, I love when people do it because I like to see what they do. And I like to see what good auction drafters, how they do it and how they let the draft come back to them. I'm looking at Team 5 here. He has 100 and math is hard, $124 wrapped up in Gibbs and Taylor as his RB1 and 2. I love the guys, and the prices are completely right up the middle, totally fine. But now he's got to build the last 14 spots with $76. I'm excited to see what Team 5 does here. I'm excited to see how he handles it. Team 12 looks like a team that I would put together. This is Achan for 41 as the RB1 and Javonte Williams for 23 as his RB2. So he's only got $64 wrapped up, and he's got two running backs who are the unquestioned RB1 that are going to get 300 to 350 touches for $64. It's hard to argue that that could be a viable strategy this year. So let's see. Who else have we missed here? Chase Brown went for 45. And team number 9, 10, 11, 9 has two running backs, Genty and Chase Brown, for $91. And I like this. I'm a little surprised Chase Brown went this high, but then again, I'm not. And all of you need to be prepared for the fact that Chase Brown is going to sneak up into that Genty range, that $40 range, because I've been expecting to get him a little bit cheaper, and lately I have not ended up with any Brown. Don't forget, too, folks, the last time we were watching fantasy football, oh yeah, hey, great! I'm already running my FWM about it before even seeing the message. How do I feel about the Chase Brown price? I like it, and because I do think that Brown should be going in the first round. I know that's not necessarily a controversial take. I don't think that's crazy, but when we saw him last on the field, he was going nuts. And don't forget that people remember that stuff. People remember their impression of a player when people were last playing football. And that's a subconscious thing. And it's something that we have to remember in auctions, especially if a person had that player the last year. So, for example, if I have Chase Brown, and then when it comes time for my auction and I bid more, the people in the room should be clued into, hey, this guy won a title with Chase Brown last year. Now he's bidding on him. There's an emotional connection there. It happens a lot. And so I think that you should never forget that I'm trying to watch here because Henry went for 37. The comparison here. Yeah, we should never forget that this game that we play, this auction game, is a lot about just people's opinions and people's emotions. It's much different than a snake draft. There's no linear unfolding of an auction draft. So people's preferences, their closely held beliefs about players are going to change the prices. So anyway, Team 9 grabs Genty and Brown for 91. I love that. He's got St. Brown for 53. So now he's got some work to do. He's got 13 spots left. And he's got $56. Now, my buddy just texted me that he's the Millers. My bad, bud. Pat, what is up, man? Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate that. But yeah, I'm going to try, if I can here, get you guys to just stick with me while I try to tweet out the live stream on Twitter. I've already tweeted out that we're going live, but I haven't tweeted the actual live link in a little while. So I'm going to do that. But I think the Derrick Henry price is interesting too. And let me just run my mouth about Derrick Henry a little bit, because I think that there's a real value opportunity there. And boy, oh boy, I feel like if you want to go a little bit cheaper at running back and you're okay with the Derrick Henry situation, his touches and his age and all that stuff, you can slot him in as an RB1 on your team if you want to spend less money. So I think that Derrick Henry is a conversation that needs to be had. I feel like nobody is talking about Derrick Henry, and I'm not really sure why. And I mean, maybe it should be simpler that it's just an age touch cliff thing. I mean, I get that, but 37 seems too cheap for what we've seen for this guy. I guess maybe the old adage of a year too early instead of too late, but I've been saying a year too early for like 3 years, and I'm not willing to bet against Derrick Henry. So, all right, I'm getting a comment here about Neighbors. Let me comment on that, and let me get this out on Twitter. I want to see what Neighbors' price was because I definitely missed that. So I was unable to go live on Twitter, which I didn't want to pay $3,000 billion a month to StreamYard, but we aren't getting the same traffic as last year because it's not going out on Twitter. So if anybody out there wants to retweet, help us out, that would be great. All right, Neighbors. What did Neighbors go for? $30. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was interested to see what Neighbors went for. That is more than he's been going for lately, but less than he would go for if we knew he was 100% going into week 1. So that's a hedge price for sure, and I like it because if you're on the right side of the hedge, it's really going to work out for you. If you're not willing to pay in the 30s and then he's got compensatory groin injury by week 4, you're feeling great about it. But if you paid 30 and he's Malik Neighbors by week 4, boy, oh boy, you're going to be dominating the rest of the league. I missed CeeDee Lamb in here as well. He went for 47, and then Nico Collins for 39. Those are interesting prices because I think that we're finally starting to see the drop off from the early spending. We don't have a lot of teams over $100 of money left, and so it's going to be harder and harder to justify a $40 to $50 bid on any player, no matter what the name is, because of the early spending. Again, Team 12 looks like a lot like something I would do. He's got Lamar Jackson for $16 and Nico Collins for 39. If you want to back off the top wide receivers and top running backs, there is a very strong argument that in a 12-team league, you could end up with guys like Rice and Collins together or Rice Collins Neighbors. I mean, think about that. You could put Rice Collins and Neighbors together for $100, and then you could still spend 37 on Derrick Henry and 41 on Devon Achane. Now, that's crazy. That you can't really do all that. But look at these. There are ways to come off of the top guys. There just are, and you don't have to go in and spend 53, 65. You don't have to do that. So your par sheet's really important to how you want to do it. Yeah, Jeff, I agree. I mean, Henry at 37, we got to have a conversation about Derrick Henry, right? I mean, the guy continues to just do his thing, and there really isn't any evidence that his efficiency dropped off last year. I looked at his missed tackles forced and all that stuff. I mean, he's never been a shifty guy, but his yards after contact, everything that I looked into says that it ain't over for Derrick Henry yet. Now, the end usually comes fast for big power backs. So I get it, and I get the trepidation, and that's why it's 37, right? I mean, that's the deal. That's what we're doing here. But yeah, it's a little bit. It's a conversation we got to have, and it's a way that you can come off the top backs. And let's say you go in and you spend a little bit too quick at wide receiver, then you can come back and really get some nice deals lower on the running backs. And I got to point out here what team is this? 7, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 7. SCal 74 here. Take a look at the 7 hole on his top two receivers. Again, this is the way that you can play receiver if you feel like I'm not spending 37, I'm not spending 39, I'm not spending 47, 53. You can still look, folks. Chris Olave, he had 100 catches last year and 100 catches for $33. Now, maybe Jordan Tyson takes some of that and he settles in at 85 or 90, or maybe they figure out Tyler Shuck and Olave's not a great pick. But for $33, I think that's a nice price. I think you're going to have to pay right around that. Again, this is a rock solid value in this room. McConkey for 26 surprises me a little bit. I think that's low. I think that's a little bit lower than I've been seeing recently. So putting together Olave and McConkey, if both of them are what we want them to be, for $59 feels really strong. So he's got Hampton for 47. This is the way you play the game if you're not going for the top players. 47 for Hampton, 33 for Olave, 26 for McConkey. He's got a lot of room to maneuver still and 3 really strong players. They're not the elite of the elite, but they're pretty darn good. And that for that amount of money, I think he's done really well there. Let me point out Drake London just went for $48. And this is a conversation I've had twice in the last couple of days. Should we be more worried about the Atlanta Falcons offense? Because I tell you what, they have a quarterback problem. And now maybe Tua is going to be good enough to get the ball to Drake London, but neither guy is healthy, and neither guy has a history of health. So I think we need to be having a conversation about the Atlanta Falcons too, because we've got 2 important fantasy pieces, and we don't know what the heck's going on in quarterback. So I think it's, Drake London for 48. That feels a little bit rich unless London is the guy that we want him to be, because we certainly saw elite top 3 wide receiver 1 prices, production from London for a $48 price. So we're getting the discount on London because of the uncertainty. If you want to put your chips in that basket, it's right there in front of you. $48 is a discount for what we know his upside to be. We saw it last year. Okay, we've had a couple quarterbacks go, and so I want to talk about that. Did Saquon go? Did I miss him? No. Oh, somebody's in the chat. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, I want to talk about Pickens and Waddle. But we've got another quarterback up for bid. And we saw Jackson go for 16 and May went for 18. And if you listen to the auction brief last week, you know that I was in a room that was playing quarterback chicken. So we had Jackson for 16, May for 18, and Allen just went for 20. Again, we're slotting the quarterbacks in here. The market's been set. But I feel like Josh Allen at $20, we haven't seen a price on Allen that low in years. So I think if you want to go into your draft and try to get Josh Allen, I don't think it's a bad idea anymore. I think that 28, 31, whatever he was going for the last couple of years, too much. But everybody is down on the top level quarterbacks because it's so deep. So everyone's going crazy like, I don't care, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. I don't think that's a bad idea. Oh yeah, Barkley. Okay, so Barkley went for 40. That's funny. It is the same price. But I feel like that Barkley price, by the way, is a deal. That might be the best deal we've seen so far. And I wonder if that's because of the recent news about Bigsby and him splitting reps in camp. I know a lot of people are saying that's how it might go this year. I'm not buying it. I think that Bigsby may play more because he barely played last year when Barkley was healthy. But I like that. I want my backup running back to play more. I don't want my top running back to get 27 carries every week. I want my top running back to get 18 most weeks and then 24 in good weeks. And then I want him to catch some passes. So it's okay if you put Tank Bigsby in there for some of the grinding that you have to do over a long NFL season. I'm not worried about that. So Barkley for 40, yeah, that's pretty amusing. Let's see. Okay. Boy, oh boy. This room is tough, you guys. I'm glad I'm not in this room. Jalen Waddle for 27 feels pretty good. And George Pickens for 34 feels pretty good. I don't know if you've been listening to me whine about this recently with the Pickens Lamb thing, but if you're in a league with me, you're going to see that I just don't care about CD Lamb at the price. And had a conversation with Scott Barrett earlier today on Sirius, and he said essentially that what I've picked out with Lamb's profile is Scott agrees that number one season from CD Lamb is doing a lot of heavy lifting because he really is not. He's not ever been the guy who's the top 5, 6, 7 fantasy receiver in points per game. He doesn't have many finishes in the top. I think he's got one in the top 7. And so I think that we have to look at the price difference between Pickens and Lamb, which is $13. In just about every auction, I'm seeing this spread. I'm seeing this $10 to $15 spread in these two guys. And I just think you're getting 85% of Lamb for $15 less dollars. And I just think it's real simple. I think the math is real simple. Now, a lot of people think that, hey, at some point, Lamb's going to put it together. He's going to have that wide receiver one season. I can't argue with that logic because I don't disagree. At some point, things are going to fall right. Maybe George Pickens gets hurt at some point, knock on wood. We don't want that to happen. But Lamb stays healthy, Pickens gets hurt, and Dak stays healthy. I can see another wide receiver one overall season for CeeDee Lamb, but you could have the same conversation about George Pickens too. What if Lamb gets hurt? And we saw what happens when Lamb gets hurt. Pickens goes nuclear. So I think that's an interesting price point. You're going to see that spread in your drafts, and if you like one more than the other, it's easy to know what you're getting. Waddle for 27. Gosh, I keep talking about Jalen Waddle, and I feel like every time I pick up my phone, yeah, Scott Cobe. By the way, Scott, your Twitter's been hacked. I think every time I pick up my phone and I look at my my Twitter and I scroll, there's some person on Twitter talking about how mispriced Jalen Waddle is and how he's going to be so great in Denver. And I keep thinking to myself, man, I'm not getting Jalen Waddle because he's $27. And I'm surprised by that. I'm surprised that it's that. I'm surprised that it's that cheap. And I mean, $27 feels cheap for a guy that has done the things he's done in his career. And I'm fond of putting this stat out there that Waddle's had 2 seasons in his career when he got more than 104 targets. And in those 2 seasons, in one season he caught over 100 passes, and in the other season he had 1,356 yards or something like that. So Jalen Waddle for $27. If you think he's going to get 110 to 120 targets in Denver, then that $27 is a no-brainer, and he's the perfect wide receiver 2. And in fact, he could be your wide receiver 3 if you go heavy enough at wide receiver. But he's a great wide receiver 2. And I just keep thinking the price is going to rise, but it's not. And there's something going on there. I'm missing something. Maybe you guys in the chat could, in the chat, tell me what you think about why the Waddle price is not rising, because I continue to expect to see it in the 30s, and it's not going there. So I got a question. What show were you? And see if I can. Yeah, what show were you? I keep forgetting I can do this. My bad. What show were you on with Scott? And so Scott came on Fantasy Points Weekend on Sirius, so you can go back and listen to that. That was 3 to 5 today. And Scott talked a little bit about his draft guide that's dropping tomorrow. So if anybody wants an incredible couple of articles from Ryan Heath and Scott Barrett, they're dropping their big pre-draft articles that are just awesome over there at Fantasy Points. So you can check that out. All right, let's get back to what we're talking about here. What are we talking about here? Trey McBride went for 30. Okay, that's interesting. I haven't seen McBride go for 30 yet. And I've seen him in the mid to upper 20s. I'm not saying it's an incorrect price, but that's cheaper than I've seen. Or excuse me, more expensive than I've seen. So We had Zay Flowers for 26. Ooh, ooh. Okay. All right. Now you guys did something a little wacky. That's a little wacky. 26 for Flowers. Oh boy, that feels a very that feels low. And I don't know if they're going to solve the touchdown thing with Flowers, but 26 when you can make him your wide receiver 3 at that price, boy, I'm all in on that. And that price, I feel like that price has been over 30 recently. There's been a little bit of steam. So I love that. And look at what Team 3 has done here. Lamb for 47, Neighbors for 30, Flowers for 26. If Neighbors is back the second half of the season, these 3 wide receivers for Team 3 are going to be a murderer's row. That's a tough one they're setting up there. So Josh Jacobs went for 33. All right, that's interesting because I want to talk a little bit about Jacobs. I think that the reason he's not going for more is there's just still some uncertainty about what's going on with his legal situation. And boy, oh boy, I feel like somebody said Bowers went for 34. No, he went for 35. Oh, you're talking about yours. Sorry, my bad. Yeah. But, okay, so Jacobs, he's just been going too cheap. And I've been trying not to get so much Jacobs because, look, my advice to everybody on the Patreon, and, this is going out to the public now, has just been that if they really had it on Jacobs, they would have filed by now. I don't think they have it. I think they're letting things die down, and they're going to announce it, sometime on a Friday in the middle of September. But let me just say, there's a non-zero chance that we wake up someday in the near future and they file charges and that he gets put on the exempt list. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that's why the price continues to stay down. But now 33 for Jacobs is higher than I've seen recently. That's a price that I'm a little bit surprised to see because I've been seeing upper 20s, low 30s. Now 33 is still low 30s, but it's a little bit more than I've seen. So I think it's still a fine price because Jacobs is still a guy who I made some notes on him the other day. And yeah, so in 2025, he was the RB10 in points per game. And in the previous year, he was the RB8, I believe. He's going right now. His ADP is RB17. And the only thing holding him back from a good season is some bad touchdown luck because they love to stuff the ball into the goal line on the ground. And they just don't let Jordan Love do it. So Jacobs has a lot of games that are 23 carries for 89 yards and 3 touchdowns, like 2 touchdowns, whatever. Just that's what they like to do. So I'm a little bit surprised the price hasn't risen more as we've gotten, through the month of July without any news on his case. People tend to have amnesia about that kind of stuff, and I'm a little surprised. So this may be the harbinger of things to come with Jacobs, that he's going to start sneaking back up there. Okay, let's update some recent prices. Now, let's see here. How far are we into? We're about to hit the end of round 4. So in just a second, I'm going to stop the draft to crank the nomination clock down. So everybody in the draft room, we're almost an hour in, and so I want things to move a little bit quicker. And it's not going to be anything crazy, but we are going to be on a 10-second clock on both sides, the nomination and the bidding. But we are at a point right now where things are going to start to diverge. They're going to start to go different direction here because everybody is now in that spot where they're thinking more about what do they need and what do I need to be doing here as far as pulling money from certain teams or getting a person that they need. So we start to see some divergence on nominations, and nomination strategy is something that's going to be very different among all these teams. And so we're going to start to see some different some different nominations here. Let's see here. Ed Heath, what's up, Ed? Love Ed being here. Caleb Williams is on the block, and he's going right now for $6. And Caleb Williams for 6. So the quarterback prices have fallen off because Joe Burrow went for 7. And this is really, if you want one of the top quarterbacks, go for it. Just go for it. But if not, then don't worry about it because you can just, there's so many guys you can get for less than $8. So many guys. Look, Burrow went for 7, Caleb for 6. Like, you don't have to, don't press it. Don't press it. There's no need to do that. And we're at $2 on Brandon Aubrey. Oh my gosh. Sound the alarms. We have a kicker in round 4. Oh no, I missed the time to pause the clock. Alexander, after this nomination, everybody, we're going to have a quick pause. This is not a break. It's going to be a 5-second pause for me to crank down the nomination clock. So be ready, Dan, in the 3-hole. We are going to move quicker now. But we had a kicker go, and he went for $2. Hey, I can't argue with Aubrey going for $2. I'm probably not doing it. You know, he wasn't the kicker 1 last year. A lot of people don't know that. He was not the kicker 1. He was behind Jason Myers, who was the kicker 1. And I tell you, sometimes having a really efficient offense works against a kicker because Myers had a very good offense with a very good defense. It provided that perfect storm there. Okay. Owen says he's coming in late. It's a $200 cap, Owen. And we're just breaking down some of the dollars. Some of the prices. So the dollars are out. If we look across the board now, look at what we're dealing with here. Again, a very disciplined group because we don't have a massive spread here. We've got somebody with 31 and we've got somebody with 100. But in between there, it is a pretty tight group. And again, that's not unusual either. That's how things go. So, all right, what just happened? Let's make sure we catch up with the last few picks. And I got to pause it. I keep saying I'm going to do it. Whoops. We already got the nomination out there. Okay. Sorry. Just go ahead with Kyron. My bad, everybody. We're going to pause it after this one. Sorry about that. Screwing the whole thing up. Man. Yeah, a lot of teams are looking like they're not going to have a lot of money left for the bench. But, you know, the overspending is going to create deals later. There are going to be deals later, and there's going to be some people there to snatch those up. So Devontae Smith for 29. I tell you what, if I get in a draft and I could have Devontae Smith as my wide receiver 2 for 29, Flowers as my wide receiver 3 for 26, and I can get a guy like A.J. Brown or Rashee Rice or Nico Collins as my 1, boy, that feels fun. That feels really fun. I'm surprised at the Devontae Smith number. That's a little lower than I've been seeing. Okay, I'm pausing it. Don't nominate. Okay. We're cranking this clock down. Sorry, everybody. We are going down to 10 seconds on ye old nomination clock. And we are ready to go. Henry, you are up. 10 seconds on your noms now. Have that stuff in mind. Seahawks D is the nomination. I love this play. Now, I like to keep my defense for later, but I like doing this early and seeing if anybody will bite. Because if somebody bids 2, cool, you can have them. If they don't, then I get my defense that I want. And right now, the Seahawks and the Texans have both gone for $1. It doesn't look like anybody's going to bid over $1. So sometimes I don't think it's a bad idea to get that defense and to get in first if we know it's not going to go for more than $1. But I do like having the flexibility late that I haven't filled my defense spot yet. I haven't filled my kicker spot, and I'm sitting on this guy or that guy. I want that player to still be there. I don't want to nominate them and lose them. I just want to keep waiting on them. And a lot of times that's when I can nominate a kicker or defense late. Yeah, I'd love to hear everybody's comments too about Jeremiah Love because that was a pretty low price. I'm a little bit surprised. Didn't he just go? Did I miss that? Yeah, $24. People are, I tell you what, that is a massive swing that from what I've seen earlier in the offseason. $24 on Jeremiah Love. seems like a really good deal right now. And I think what's happened here is we hit an inflection point not long ago. People don't have the money. So we're seeing prices crater. And oh boy, Team 12 just walked out of there with Colston Loveland for $18. So we see Trey McBride go for 30 and Loveland go for 18. But this, again, this is auctions. We got something to talk about, right? This is auctions because Loveland for 18 and McBride for 30, you could argue they're going to score in the same area. You could even argue that Loveland might outscore him. So this is this is why auctions are fun. People are running out of money, and some of these guys coming up now are going to be too cheap. There's going to be deals, but people can't do anything about it. And that's why, that's why this game is so much fun. And that doesn't mean that no players are going to be, look, we're still getting 16, 17 bucks on Jamison Williams. That's reasonable. But again, the spending was heavy early. We're getting that little valley where some of these players are going to be too cheap. And then it's going to go back up here in a little bit for some guys that are some of the last ones in their tier. And we've still got players on the board here. This is a start 3 wide receiver league. We have one manager with no wide receivers, and we've got several that need 2 or 1 wide receiver. The competition for wide receivers is still going to be heavy. So we're still going to see some prices spike back up, but we're seeing a little bit of a lull here. And when I talk about inflection points, this is what it's all about. This is about finding these players in the lull and trying to take advantage of it. Look at what Team 4 did with their running backs. I think this is interesting. And this is, I think, kind of how you play it when you go for Brock Bowers. Sorry, I'm sitting on a metal folding chair, so that's a good noise when I move, right? But, when you pay $35 for Bowers, you have to make choices. And one of those choices is spending a little less elsewhere. So he gets Rice for 37, Jamison Williams for 17, Breece Hall for 28, and Kyron Williams for 27. Now, again, a clinic on how you can put together explosive running backs for cheap. 28 and 27. You got both of those guys for $55. I mean, I like that. I like that. If you're going to go a little bit cheaper at running back, Kyron Williams can still have 10 touchdowns this year. Don't let anybody tell you different. Breece Hall can still catch 60 balls this year. Don't let anybody tell you different. If you want to go cheaper at running back, I love the combo that Team 4 put together here. And that's what you got to do. You got to make choices when you take Brock Bowers. So, all right, where are we at now? DeAndre Swift is up for bid, and this isn't a good time to talk about how your nomination strategy should be moving here, because now there's something called, when I talk about inflection points, there are what's known as personal inflection points as well. There are inflection points for your team. Let's say you spent a little bit too much on a guy that you didn't expect to spend on, or let's say you didn't spend enough and now you're hurting a little bit. You may have to do something you don't want to do, which is to either let somebody go that shouldn't be that cheap, or to overspend on somebody that you really need. And I tell you what, that's personal to you, but it's still an inflection point because your draft is going to go one direction or another based on how you solve that problem, right? So don't ever forget that not only does the league have inflection points, but but your roster does too. And I'm laughing because Beck's dog in the chat here says metal folding chair. I'm on the Game of Thrones Iron Throne. That's what this is. I won't give it up because this is actually the auction throne, the auction champ throne. Jeff, Swift, what a great deal on Swift. Now we're seeing it. $17 on Swift. We're seeing some deals. There's not enough money left in the room. I love this area of the draft. It's where good auction drafters should excel, and you need to have money to take advantage of it. So David Montgomery for $15 is criminal. Now we're seeing it, folks. We're seeing it, okay? It's been trending this way for the last round and a half. We're there, all right? Because David Montgomery for $15, Again, if you need to pivot out of your RB2 and Montgomery's your guy for 15, he makes a great RB2 for $15. So watch these trends and know what's coming, because if you had waited and you had some money to spend right now, you're snapping up these deals. Swift for 17, Montgomery for 15, especially because we don't know what the heck's going on with Kyle Monungai. If anybody wants to tell me, does anybody know Kyle Monungai out there? Tell me what's going on with him. I just drafted him on Saturday. I'm shouting into the mic. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, Scott. So the champion of the Kings Classic auction gets a belt, but then when you win it 3 times, you get this sick metal folding chair that you get to sit on. And I'm sitting on it right now because, look, I'm 50 years old a couple months ago, and sitting on a metal folding chair, running my FWM for 2 hours, hey, it's a young man's game. Am I right? Oh, man, we're starting to get to that point. We're getting a little slap happy. Let's bring it back. I got a question in the chat. All right. What is this question here? If I draft Genty, who's the first nomination, and I get to nominate immediately, do I nominate Higgins, or is that too far down the board? Trying to understand your strategy. I like this. I like this question because I think your question is a very valid one, because I've always said that if you go too deep into the wide receiver or into any tier early in the draft, you're going to end up overpaying instead of getting a deal. Got my mute button there, my cough button. And so I think Higgins, he's right on the borderline of what may be going too low into the tiers. Because when you go that low and there's a lot of money in the room, people are like, hey, Higgins is explosive. I'm cool with it. I'm going to pay 34 for him. He just went for 27 just now. I like that price. I've been seeing Higgins sneak up into closer to 30 and into the 30s lately. I don't like it. I'm not doing that. But as a wide receiver 3, man, he's dynamite. Team Pizza is in a bit of a pickle, however, because they have 6 players and they're now down to a $2 max bid. So I don't mind T. Higgins there, but that feels difficult to dig out of. That's going to be tough. I like to see how Team Pizza finishes out the team. All right, where are we at now? Mike Evans is sitting there at $19. Once again, folks, we are watching the result of the early spending. So if you're watching the stream now, go check out how things started with some of the top running backs with $70 for 2 guys, $60 for some of the receivers. I am not here to tell you those things are incorrect. I'm here to tell you that this that we're watching right now is the result of all of the early spending. So Mike Evans went for 19. Now, I've been saying all off season that I want Mike Evans for a certain price. And this is the price, okay? I've been seeing way too much $28 Mike Evans. That is not where I want him at this point. Now, if their receivers keep dropping like flies, maybe. But I love the $19 price on Mike Evans. I want to be in on Evans between $15 and $20. And I want him as my wide receiver 3. I do not want to rely on him as my wide receiver 2 in the upper 20s, low 30s. That's just not the price that I think is worth paying for this guy with this amount of risk. I bitch a lot about how I don't get my discount, and I want my discount on people. And I don't think that we've had an Evans discount. And that $19, I like that. All right, so I'm going to scroll these a little bit here. We saw Jadarian Price just now go for 13. That's not too bad. Fairbairn for $1. Lawrence for 3. Again, perfect. If you're executing a late quarterback strategy, Trevor Lawrence for 3 is chef's kiss. Jaden Daniels for 6. Chef's kiss. Bashal Tootin for 16. Travion Henderson for 15. Boy, those are, again, those prices should be in the 20s. Now, I'm not saying Tootin, maybe Tootin should be 18 or 20, but I'm not disagreeing because I'm not paying 16 for Travion Henderson. I think he's a good player, and I'm totally fine with the price, but that's just not for me. But that's also cheaper than I'm seeing. So I'm reacting in 2 ways here. That's not my personal preference, but it's also not crazy as far as a price goes. Dicker for $1, Broncos for $1, Scattaboo for 23. I think we got to talk about this because I don't think the price in a vacuum is a bad price at all. But I am concerned about how he's going to do off of that injury last year. We know that players take a year to come back. Tony Pollard is the first one that always comes to mind. But Chris Godwin, these guys, it takes a year. Even though they're on the field, they just don't. They lack something. Now, I'm not saying Scattaboo can't pay off at that $23 price because he possibly can. But I think that no, Scott, I don't have a blueberry slushie. That was what I was mainlining last year for sugar. This is a Coke Zero kind of night, but plenty of caffeine. I'm hopped up on caffeine. Should I start screaming or talking in the Duke voice? I don't know what to do. Stevenson cheaper than Henderson. Yeah, totally. I lost my train of thought there. I was running my FWM about something and completely cut that off. But what do we got here? Adams for 16. Again, Prescott for 3. Look at what you can do at quarterback if you wait. Price for 13. I don't have a strong opinion on Price for 13. Jonathan Brooks for 8 feels like a lot of fun. I think you really got to take a chance on Jonathan Brooks for anything single digits. You just have to. Maybe he sucks. Maybe he tears another ACL. I don't know. But you got to, take a chance. He's exciting. That's what fantasy football is. Take a chance on that guy. I think right now, Team 12 is most closely aligned with what I'd be doing in this auction draft room. Probably not the 16 on Jackson. I'd probably go in $3 on Trevor Lawrence, but everything else is right up my alley. All right, Jalen Hurts just went for 5. Again, what did I say? Quarterbacks under $8. Like, you don't got to worry about it. If you want Drake May, go for it. Totally cool. You want Josh Allen, go for it. But otherwise, under $8, a lot of times under 5. I'm totally cool. A lot of times I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott. I'm going to double tap. I like that. I feel like there's just, both those guys are oozing with upside. I love it. Yeah, there's a conversation in the chat going on about Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, and it's one I've been talking about all off season. If you want your mind to be blown, I can find the stats before tomorrow night's feed. But if you want your mind to be blown about how explosive these two running backs were last year in the Patriots' backfield, I'll blow your mind tomorrow night. But let me just say, the most explosive player in that backfield by just about every single available metric was Ramondre Stevenson. And I know that sounds crazy, but he was the better back. And I'm not saying Henderson can't get better. He was a rookie. Guys get better. I get that. But, man, you can't – there are almost zero metrics in which Henderson was the better player last year. And we kept whining about it all year, right? Like, hey, what's the deal here? But when you go back and look at the advanced metrics, it's very simple what the deal is. Very simple what the deal is. All right. So Scott wants to know, am I liking studs and duds or balanced? I don't like to lock myself in. However, I'm going more top-heavy to my starting lineup than I ever have. And so I'll answer the question that way by saying I am happy spending on my starters and not worrying too much about my bench. And I don't necessarily know how this is going to work out for me because I've been saying it all off season that like this is just, I think this is the way now for me. And I'm not saying I'm right, but I think that the way that I'm approaching this is I want these guys on my bench to be $1 to $4 players. That's extreme. That's extreme. Beckstog wants to know what a par sheet might look like. I love this question. I wish I had my par sheets in front of me from the King's Classic, but if you know me, if you listen to the show this week, and you know me, you know that I was up at 3 or 4 in the morning before the King's Classic doing my par sheets. And I had something happen to me that's never happened to me before, which is I ripped off a par sheet that was exactly $200 without without editing. I was like, I want to spend this and I want to spend this. And that par sheet was something like this: $3 at QB1, 44 at RB1, 28 at RB2, 40, no, 32 for wide receiver 1, 26 for wide receiver 2, 18 for wide receiver 3, and $7 for flex, maybe. It's roughly that neighborhood with $5 for my tight end. I loved that build. And then I had it's 7 for a flex, but because it was 3 flex, it was like 11, 9, 7 or something on my flex. So for this type of a draft here, I'm pushing some of that flex money into my wide receiver 1. So I really believe that, the secret to doing par sheets is doing them at 4 a.m. It's my secret sauce. I've been in the league 7 years. I've got 3 titles, and I've done my par sheets at 3 or 4 in the morning after a few seltzers, 1 to 19 seltzers. And, it's, hey, 3 out of 7 ain't bad. I'm not going to change things. Yeah, Pat, you're absolutely right. I can't wait to see what Team 5 does with the wide receiver room. But yeah, so Scott, like in all seriousness here, though, for this kind of a draft, probably my build is looking something like this: $6 for QB1, low 40s for RB1, upper 20s for RB2, upper 30s to low 40s for wide receiver 1, mid to upper 20s for wide receiver 2, and then 15 to 18 for wide receiver 3. And a point that I'm making, hey, what's up, Chev? Thank you for being here. We're getting some momentum. We're getting some eyes on the prize here. Love it. Welcome in. And we're going live again tomorrow night at 7 o'clock and live again Tuesday night. Don't forget. But so I think that my optimal build this year, what I'm talking about more is that I want less of the $12 to $14 wide receivers, and I want the guys in the $20 range. Because what we're seeing in the NFL, and this is a conversation I've had on the show, and I'm sorry if I'm going to bore you with it, but I think it's an important conversation to have. And then we're going to get to some prices here in the room because I know we're falling behind here. But the important conversation is this: the NFL is playing defense and offense differently than it was 5 years ago, because wide receiver 2 and 3 scoring for fantasy football is down. And we just can't count on the 2s and 3s to come through like they used to. Instead, the value shifting to running back. And when I looked at the difference between the scoring and RB2, to be an RB2, like the RB12 and the RB24, the scoring hasn't changed a lot in 5 years at the running back spot, but it's changed a lot at the wide receiver spot. And those prices, let me just say, the fantasy points per game at wide receiver 12 and 24 have dropped almost 2 points per game over the last 5 years. That's not an accident. And so some of these guys, I don't really want to be spending a lot of, $12 guys. Like, I'm not as interested in your Jordan Addisons this year. Like, that's not as interesting to me. I would rather shove that money towards a better player and get Ladd McConkey or Jalen Waddle or Zay Flowers, because I just don't see the utility of trying to grab these teams wide receiver 2 unless they play a lot of 11 personnel. And folks, don't forget that I said at the beginning of the summer that these teams have play calling tendencies until they don't. And sometimes you can't see that. But there are tendencies that we know for some of these play callers. And if they run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, those are the wide receiver 2s and 3s you need to be focused on, or you need to be getting your wide receiver 2, 3 from the mid wide receiver 2 pool. Does that sound like something that makes sense? We need to be upping the ante on what we like as our wide receiver 3. So, what it ends up being is shifting the value. And I'm not sure that auction drafters are doing it very much yet. And if you want a more in-depth discussion about this, my article on Football Guys is going to drop later this week, where we're going to talk about, where is the scoring to dollar ratio going. And I believe that we should be shifting more money to running back because salary cap rooms haven't quite caught up yet. And I think you can get deeper at running back and get more production than you can chasing the $12 to $14 wide receivers. So, yeah, Scott Cope, he's absolutely right. I believe the same thing that that defenses, not only are they playing deep in a shell, but linebackers are getting lighter because they're having to run with these offenses that spread the ball out and run these bubble screens and that kind of stuff. And so I think that what it comes down to is the running backs are staying healthier, and we're getting more production from those RB2, 3, 4 types than we ever did comparatively with the wide receivers. All right. So that's the key point. It's compared to the wide receivers. All right, let's go back through some deals because I'm getting behind here. I said Jonathan Brooks was tasty for $8. Teteroa McMillan goes for 26. Now this is an interesting one because I think McMillan is the kind of guy, he's kind of a litmus test for fantasy players because $26 could be seen as a great deal. It could be seen as too much for a guy that's attached to Bryce Young. Now, I paid $32 for him in a mock at the beginning of the summer. Regret that now. Excuse me. But $26, I think, feels about right for McMillan. He could vastly outperform that very easily. Let's see here. And then we got Ray Davis for $1. Love the move from Team 2. He has James Cook. He goes ahead and nails Ray Davis for $1. And just, it helps you sleep at night. People, you don't have to be one of these people who's like, I never do handcuffs or I always do. Like, feel your room out. See what it's going to be like. Look, these rosters are fairly deep, and these are good players. You're probably not going to end up getting Ray Davis off the waiver wire. If you have James Cook, I think Ray Davis makes a ton of sense. All right, now Tyler Warren went for 14, and I like talking about this too because the relative prices here are really interesting. Because Warren for 14 and Loveland for 18, there should be a bigger spread there. But that's not because the Warren price is bad. It's because the Loveland price is so good. Now, the Warren price at 14, that feels right about correct. If I want to invest in Warren this year, I want him to be 10 or 12, and I just don't think that's going to happen very often. But I don't mind 14. I think Warren, that's about right on. I don't want to spend 15 to 18 on Warren. I think that's too much. But I think 12 to 14 on Warren's completely fine, and 10 feels wonderful. So, all right. Chuba Hubbard goes for 5. Okay. Yeah, nobody likes Chuba Hubbard. Just keep that in mind. Nobody likes him. You can get him for a couple bucks. He's going to touch the ball a ton. Folks, Jonathan Brooks is the furthest thing from an Iron Man. Everyone's drafting this summer as though Jonathan Brooks is Gale Sayers. And maybe he is because that's how he ended his career with a knee injury. I don't want to wish that on anybody. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying everyone's acting like Brooks is this sure thing. Hubbard's going to touch the ball a lot, and nobody wants him. Literally nobody wants him. So $5, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful price. Josh Downs, I also love the $5 there because what I've been saying about some of these guys, and this is the conversation I want to have about this stage of the draft, is that I really think you can lose the plot on some of these guys that we start like Josh Downs. But I don't like Josh Downs for $12, okay, because there's too much risk there. And what did I say on the show this week? What I said was you can't pay a certain price for a player that's way above what their actual value is and then say, oh, well, he's going to be worth that. Well, but I don't know that that's how it works because the price is, all right, I'm way behind in the chat. I apologize, everybody. I'm working on it. Oh, now I lost my train of thought. I was making a good point. Oh, these prices in here. You can't tell me that a price is way overpriced and say, well, he's going to be worth that. Okay, well, that may be, but that doesn't make the price correct, okay? And if you wanted to get somebody because you really believe in them, that's totally fine. That's what auctions are for. I'm cool with that. Like, don't get me wrong. And also, sometimes you just need to get a player, okay? You just have to get them and you overpay. I'm not talking about those situations. I'm talking about like, I love this guy so much I paid $24 when he's an $11 player. That doesn't make it correct. Let's say he ends up being $24 player at the end. That doesn't make the play correct. Let's make an analogy here. If you like a guy a lot and he's a fifth round pick and you take him in the second, you're like, well, I had to get him. Well, no, that's not the right play. The right play is to get him in the fourth so that nobody in the fifth gets him. That's not how we do it. We don't pay 24 for a $16 player and then say, yeah, but he's going to be sweet. Now, again, I'm subject to the exceptions I just mentioned. But paying a certain price, that doesn't mean it's a correct price, okay? So being player agnostic, that helps with some of that bias there. All right, let's go talk about some other players because Rome Odunze went, and that ends up being Henry. Hey, you're on the board with a wide receiver. Great job. And hey, Henry makes a good play with Hubbard here. Some really nice depth. When he doesn't have very much money, you got to take that $5 player when you don't have money. RJ Harvey for 7. Folks, I'm going to scold all of you now. It's a scolding because you let my boy go for $7. I love RJ Harvey for $7. Again, nobody likes him. Nobody likes him. Go get RJ Harvey. Make him your RB4. Nobody likes him. Jeez. So $15 for Rome Odunze. I like this price a lot. This is where I want to be on Odunze. In fact, I think I got him for 12 the other night in a mock we did. And that's just right where I want him. 12 to $15. That's just perfect. That bakes in the risk. And let me just say something. I really still believe that Odunze is going to be the best fantasy wide receiver this year. I may not be right about that, but I think it's all about touchdowns. And I think we were watching the Rome Odunze breakout when he hurt his foot last year. In the first 8 weeks of the season, he was wide receiver 12. I mean, we were watching the breakout. He was a wide receiver 1. And then he hurt his foot and he fell off. But he's being drafted even cheaper than his post-foot numbers. So I think that might be a new sentence for the English language. Rome Odunze was being drafted lower than his post-foot numbers. All right, we only have 8 sentences left in the English language. I just used up one of them. All right, let's see here. What else are we doing recently? After Odunze, what happened? Malik Willis went for 3. Again, just dripping with upside for $3. Carnell Tate for 12. McLaurin for 20. That's that interesting little spike I was talking about. We're going to have a few of these guys go for more because even though people don't have money, like they're not going to just stop spending on a guy like that. They're going to spend for Terry McLaurin. They're not going to let you have him for 14. Even if they don't have money, they're going to bid. They're going to bid. So 20th for McLaurin, though. Having said that, it's wonderful. Wonderful price. Who got him? Roto Fanatic. Great job. He is doing pretty well right now, although he does have, he's down to $1 max bid, but I like what he did. Boy, he's got 4 monster receivers here. Chase, London, Tet McMillan, Terry McLaurin. That's quite a wide receiver core there. Okay, what else have we got going on here? Like I said, I went off on the Downs thing, but it's the same thing with RJ Harvey and Chuba Hubbard. It's like, when you get to that spot in the draft, I don't want these guys at $11. But if they're $5 to $7, just get them. Just jump on them. Don't wait. That's the purpose of the par sheet because these are the deals you can't pass up that don't come back later. All right, so it's perfectly reasonable to be filling your bench with RJ Harvey and Chuba Hubbard for $12. Love it. Love it. Okay, we got a kicker. We got the Eagles D, Chargers D, DJ Moore. Again, up to $16. It's one of those things where it's like, that's not a bad price for him, but at this point in the draft it is. Look at our max bids across the board now. Our highest max bid. We are reaching the end of round, we've reached the end of round 12. Is that right? No, 8. Excuse me, 8. Math's hard. We're in round 9, and you're seeing that max bids across the board now. Our highest max bid is $26. So Team 4 has got some buying power here. But don't forget that this conversation about the hammer is really interesting to me. Because, boy, I've got a lot of comments here. I'm sorry, I'm so far behind. But the $16 for DJ Moore is an interesting thing because you have a hammer, right? And if you use the hammer, it goes away. You lose the hammer, right? If you're sitting there and your max bid's 26 and you use $16 on DJ Moore, then your max bid just disappears to $10 or $11. So when you use the hammer, you lose it. But don't forget that you're going to get some of these cheaper guys. Jordan Mason went for $6, Dylan Sampson for $2, Kyle Monangai for $4, Jalen Warren for 10. Man, I love that price on Warren. I paid $16 for him at the Kings Classic. So don't forget, you have to get some of these deals. You can't get all of them, but you got to get a couple of them. And then it frees up your max bid to take one more really good player near the end of the draft. But don't ever forget that when you use the hammer, most of the time you lose it. And also, somebody may be sitting there with a $12 max bid, and they're going to spend $12 on one of the top remaining players. So just because you have the highest max bid doesn't mean that you're automatically going to get the player you want. You may end up spending half of your money to get that player because one other person has money. So it only takes one. It only takes one person saving their money for you to lose out on a player that you thought you might end up having. All right, so we got Ramondre Stevenson up now. This is a tale as old as time here. He's going too late. There's no money in the room, and people don't care about him because he's boring, and he went for $7. I just got to applaud Team 4 here. He's wielding the hammer judiciously, and picking up R.J. Harvey for 7 and Ramondre Stevenson for 7 is just beautiful stuff. Well done from Team 4. All right, let me get to some comments here because I'm ignoring the gallery here. Couldn't let me get Fannin for $2, man. The auction game is afoot. He wanted that Fannin, but I understand because you don't want to let the people in the room get too good of a deal. And just because you have Loveland for 18 doesn't mean Fannin's not worth it to you for 3 because you have the money, right? And at this point, it's about picking up impact players. And one of the things I like to do at this point in the draft, now we're getting down to these cheaper players, is I like to say, what are the impact players left, and what am I willing to do for those impact players? If I don't care that much about them, then I'm going to go start piling up these $6 and $7 guys and forget about it. But if there's somebody I really like that's on the board still, I'm going to try to get that guy out there because I don't think it works very well if you don't put that player out there and you just continue to wait. You're either going to bleed your money off or somebody else is waiting, and then you waited and you passed on deals. I just think you got to get him out there. Parker Washington feels like that kind of a player. Like maybe he's one of the last impact players, and then he comes up and you kind of just got to pay whatever. And I know that sounds weird, but whatever it's one of those things where, okay, well, I don't love the price. And where is he here? He went for 13. That's fine. But it might be a weird sort of like backwards thing with Parker Washington where that $13 might have been $9 a little while ago because people just didn't care enough. Or I could be wrong and he could have been 17 instead. But 13 feels a little higher than I've seen recently. So I'm wondering if this Parker Washington steam is going to continue and we're going to see him moving up into the $18 to $20 range in auctions, which sucks because I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm not saying he won't be worth it, but I just don't think that's the correct play. The Kenny Gainwell price is surprising to me. It's $9, not necessarily because it's 9, but because it's 9 at this point in the draft. If you had to ask me if I'd rather have Ramondre Stevenson for 7 or Gainwell for 9, it's not close for me because I think Stevenson's going to be the better fantasy producer overall, and he's $2 cheaper. Now, that's my personal preference. I don't think the Gainwell price is bad because he's also been gaining steam, and he's the kind of guy that I want to wait as long as I can in an auction to get him out there because I think his price goes down the more the money leaves the room because people aren't going to take a stand on Kenny Gainwell. They might say, I like that guy and I want that guy, but they're not going to take a stand on him. There's a big difference there. So, excuse me, my FWM is less W by the minute. God, we're struggling, people. Yeah, I don't mind the Downs price either. Okay, let me read some comments here. Yeah, this is a great point here. You have rankings in front of you, and you say this guy's worth it, and I pay. This is a good price, but sometimes you can get a poor price that you didn't realize was a poor price at the time because you weren't in tune with the room at the time. And I'm not saying that's what this person did, but it is something where you can kind of get to the point where you see the money, you see what's developing, you see the inflection point has happened, and you can kind of see the trend of where things are going. And then that's when you realize, hey, I can pick up these deals. Hey, I can spend X or Y because I know this deal is coming later. So yeah, I don't disagree with this idea that Twitter docs say Odunze is very risky. I don't disagree. I'm still going to take the bet. Okay, let's keep getting to some of these comments. Thank you, everybody, for being active in the chat. Scott and Bex and Jeff and Norm and let's see. $3 for Pitts is weird. I gotta tell you, folks, it's weird, but I'm seeing it. He went for $2 the last auction I did. Not the Kings Classic, the last regular 12-teamer. $2. Nobody wants him. And folks, I gotta say, I don't want him. I could have bid 3 and I didn't. I don't like him. I don't like him. I think the splits with him and Drake London were crazy, and I just don't know that I care. But let me say this. Kevin Stefanski likes his tight ends, okay? So if there's one redeeming quality about Pitts, I think that you may be very happy if you blow off the position completely. Then I think Pitts for $3 makes a ton of sense. And then just go get Chig Okonkwo for $1 and put them together and see what happens. And if they suck, go to the wire. I don't think Pitts for $3 is a bad, I'm blowing off the position plan at all. Let's see what Stefanski does with him. Maybe we're waking up this time next year and we're talking about it. I need an assistant. I do, but I also don't because I love running my FWM about all things auction all the time. I love this stream, and I love that I get to do it 2 more nights. So, all right, what has happened lately? Pittman went for $11. Scott's looking for my take on Pittman. Here's my take on Pittman. He's my wide receiver 3 in the Kings Classic for $12. He went for 11 here. I think that's his price range. I think that's what it is. I didn't get a great deal. I just needed a guy, and I got him for $12. There wasn't a lot of deals to be had in that savvy room, but I think he's a $9 to $12 guy. I think that I'd rather have him for $8. But hey, my dog says hi. But I'd rather have him for $8. I'd rather have him for $10, but I'm cool with him at $11 or $12. My dog acts like when a person walks by, they are holding a rocket launcher that they're about to fire at the front door. He just goes berserk. So I'm sure you could hear that. Sorry about that. Hi, Duncan, everybody. But Pittman is a guy that I think I could see myself being really wrong. And we get to the end of the year and he had 61 catches, and I'm like, ugh, that sucked. But I could also see him having 80 catches because I'm going to belabor the point the rest of the offseason. I'm just going to keep saying it. Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw downfield anymore. He just doesn't. And so if you're investing in DK Metcalf, I think that's the wrong receiver to have in this offense. Ladies and gentlemen, stop the stream. Just kidding. But Tucker Kraft for $4. Come on, people. Open up those purse strings. I know there's no money in the room, but open up those purse strings. Tucker Kraft for $4 is going to send me to... I'm gonna go Dave Ramsey on all of you people. What are we doing? What are we doing here? No, I love it. I love it. I understand why he went for $4. Don't at me. I get it. But man, I love that. I love it, dude. Who had LA or bust? Great job. Let's look over his team. Lawrence, McCaffrey, Bucky, Saquon, Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, Parker Washington, Tucker Kraft. Boy. Oh, and I see you got Gainwell. So you got both of the Tampa Bay guys. That's an interesting play for $29. I kind of like it. I haven't seen that a lot, but I kind of like it. Okay, Kraft for $4. I just want to say it again. Come on, people. All right. I'm sorry I'm yelling at you. Block all the... I know. I've debated whether or not to say, hey, guys, it's a rule. You can't watch my stream as it's going on. But I think it adds some intrigue. I think it's some fun. I'm gonna get up out of my Game of Thrones, 3-time champ, folding chair that they awarded me at the King's Classic. And I'm just going to whip it across the room. I'm done. I'm done with all you people. JK, we're getting there, folks. We only got about 20 minutes left in the stream. That's kind of crazy. And I don't know why that is. Because I thought it was like 7:15 a few minutes ago, and it's 8:40. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this today. We're not done yet. We're going to stick it out to the bitter end, unless that end comes at 9:05. No, just kidding. We are going really fast here, so I'm not sure that we're going to make it to the end. But something interesting is still happening here, guys. This room, it's such a good room, but they spent a lot of money early, and now all of these sharks are swimming around picking up deals. We got Quentin Johnston for $9. We got Sam Laporta for $8, which, by the way, I'm a little surprised at that Laporta price, considering the Tucker Kraft price. So I just want to complain about that for a minute. Why did you guys do that? All right, that's me. I'm done. All right, Rico Dowdle, $6. Love it. I think that him and Warren should be drafted right next to each other, and that's not happening for some reason. Brian Thomas for $9. Chef's Kiss, Wandale Robinson for $5. Marvin Harrison for $9. We're in that zone, folks. We're just, the deals are just, you're just peeling the money off and just landing good players. And if you see, this is the biggest takeaway. Before I lose people at the end of the stream, this is the biggest takeaway, okay? You have to read what's happening in your room for precisely this reason. Because if you didn't spend any money early and then you just sat around, you could be landing all of these guys for 7, 8, 9. Now, I'm not telling you that you should do that hey, Winner, what's up, buddy? I thought that was your sexy mug. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Who doesn't love it? JJ Winner 13, huh? So, sorry. We're getting off track. The Coke Zero's getting to my head. So this is the reason we play auctions, okay? You're never going to be perfect. Sometimes you're going to miss. And I realize that you have to spend up for the top guys when people are spending. So you can't just be like, oh, I'm not doing that, and I'm going to get a bunch of $7 guys. You're not going to win your league with Chuba Hubbard and RJ Harvey. However, if you have those guys and then you can wait out the spending after that, you have a couple of your top guys, you could be slamming so many deals at the end of this draft. You could have your pick of players that you believe has a certain upside, and you're getting them for less than $10. They're all going for less than $10. All right. Bill or White? I'm assuming we're talking about the Washington backfield. If I have to pick one, I'm picking Rachaad White, and it's no doubt for me, because the weirdest thing of this offseason is that the Commanders keep trying to convince us that Krosky Merritt's going to start catching passes. But they keep saying things like, yeah, we're gonna get him working on his pass catching. We're gonna get him working on his pass pro. And I want to be like, I think we've already got to the point where he should have been doing that. And working on it now in the 30 days leading up to the season isn't going to make him good at it, okay? Rachaad White is good at it, and they signed him because he's good at it. I mean, let's just call a spade here, right? This is what they signed him for. I'm not buying this nonsense that they're going to get JCM out there and catch passes. So just keep in mind that teams speak to us when they're not speaking. And they told us what they think about JCM and his ability to play third downs and catch passes by signing Rachaad White. So it's White for me in a full PPR for sure. And honestly, I want no part of Krosky Merritt. He could make me look bad, but are you worried about getting beat by Krosky Merritt this year? I'm not. I mean, if the guy goes off and has 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, first of all, I'll fall over and I'll get rid of my Game of Thrones chair. I'll just throw it away. You know, this nice metal folding chair, I'll just throw it away. I mean, who would do that, right? We're off the rails, folks. We're officially off the rails. Well, Henry is putting He's putting people on Front Street, man. He's putting people on Front Street. I'm not even going to say it. Okay. We are getting near the end, folks. We've got 15 minutes left in the stream. We have had such good drafters that we might not even make it till 9 o'clock because we cranked that nomination clock down to 10 seconds after round 4. We probably could have gone to round 5 with that, but we were already an hour in, and so I cranked the clock down, and now we're 15 minutes away, and we're at pick 133. We might not make it to 9 o'clock. If we don't, no big deal. We'll be back tomorrow night. Let me just recap what is going on tomorrow night, and I'm going to give you as big of a look at the back of the draft board as I can. Bo Nix for $1. Love that. Love it. Go get Trevor Lawrence for $3 and Bo Nix for $1. Just do it. So easy. Sometimes the game doesn't have to be hard. Okay, here's the back of the rosters. And let me just talk a little bit about what we've got going on this week. So tonight we finished our 1 QB auction here in the next 15, 20 minutes. And then tomorrow night, we're doing more of the same, except it's a super flex. And tomorrow night has a bit different settings because you'll have a super flex and a flex. So you'll have 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a flex and a super, no kickers or defenses, but you still have to start at tight end. I love watching super flex drafts unfold because you can do so many different things in super flex drafts. A lot of people just like blowing off quarterback and just getting these top guys because they're going so much cheaper. So I'm really interested to see tomorrow night's draft. So for everyone who is wondering, don't forget, tomorrow night, same time, 7 o'clock, same channel, the Auction Brief YouTube channel. We're going to get, yep. Hey, I'm not saying you were wrong. I'm just saying that I didn't want to put him on Front Street. So he was absolutely right. He saved his last $10 for Corum, ended up getting him because he has Kyron Williams. I don't think that's a bad idea because that's his last player. And so now, he's got Corum to go with Kyron Williams. I love it. He went Patrick Mahomes for $1. Boy, oh boy. There's some fun builds here. But tomorrow night, folks, come back for the Superflex auction. It's going to be same time tomorrow night. And we're going to do the same live feed again tomorrow night. I'm hoping to feed this out to Twitter. I may give StreamYard a little bit of my money and do that. But regardless, tomorrow night is the Superflex stream. And then Tuesday night, we cap off the 3 nights of auction fun. And the guests I have lined up are awesome. We've got Dave Richard from CBS. We've got Scott Pianowski from Yahoo. We've got Jim Coventry from RotoWire. We've got Doug Orth from The Huddle. And we've got Matt Cruz, the Jim Brown auctioneer from this past Saturday. He's going to give his auctioneer view. And I love having Matt on the show because Matt has a different perspective than we do. He's a fantasy guy. It's kind of like me with the legal stuff. I love fantasy football and I have the legal stuff. Matt is an auctioneer and he gets to watch the machinations of people's brains as he's doing an auction with some high-level guys. And so Matt's perspective is invaluable. We've got him coming up on Tuesday night. So we're running headlong to the end of this draft. There is only one person with a double-digit max bid, and everyone else is pretty much below $3. I've got one $5, one $8, a bunch $3 or below, and one $10. And that's it. So we are going to fly to the end of this auction because there's not going to be anybody bidding on anyone. So we got, let's run back here. Golden for $3, Reed for $3, Rashid Shaheed for $1, Nix for $1, Dobbins for $7. I think it's an interesting little spike here at pick 134 and 135 to see Dobbins and Corum go for $7 and $10. Again, don't ever fall asleep and think you're getting a player for $3 because nobody has any money. We're freaking 135 picks in and somebody paid $10 for someone. So it ain't automatic just because you want it to be. Michael Wilson, $2. Jacoby Myers for $1. Wears me out. I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired. Just kidding. It's not that big a deal, but damn, $1. He's going to have a 12-point floor. I love Jacoby Myers for $1. Um, Jeff likes Dulcich this year. You're not alone. I'm not taking him as anything more than a flyer as a tight end too, but I do get your idea, and I do, you know, agree because I've heard a lot of people talking about Dulcich being impressive. They tried to use him last year. They just weren't getting good quarterback play. All right, back to the board. Rashad White, $4. Andrew Jones, Aaron Jones, $3. Gadsden, $1. Okonkwo, $1. Keaton Mitchell, $4. Tracy, $2. Ferguson, $1. Jaden Higgins, $2. And that brings us up to date. So you see what's happening here, and you see that this is that situation where don't ever forget when you get to the end of an auction, it's about who you nominate because you might get that player. And sometimes you want to nominate a guy for $2. Yeah. Chad says waiting on QB and a Superflex a good video for Patreon. I agree. I'm really sorry that I don't do more Superflex content on the Patreon, and I'm working on that. I'm going to have a guest on here soon to talk about that. But the Superflex, it's such an interesting auction because you can play it so many different ways. And all of the top guys you're going to see a depression in the price of the top non-QB skill position players. And sometimes that presents an opportunity to do that if you go cheaper on your quarterback build. So, so Chad says, okay. Yeah, so back to the point here, which is that near the end of the auction, you just have to remember that whoever you nominate is more than likely going to be somebody either that you get or that you lose because they go for $2 or $3. So a lot of times I just want to start my nomination at $2. And sometimes I want to call out a dollar player and just see if I get him for $1, and then I don't care if I have to bid $3 to get him. But just never forget that there's just an important calculus there. It's, do I need this $1 player? Am I going to pay $3 for him, or do I start the bidding at $2? You always have to be thinking about that. That's one of the most important things in endgame auctioning is figuring that out. Okay, so I have a team with 2 kickers and no defense. That's a little odd, but okay. All right, let's see here. What else is going on? 1, 2. I don't know why there's only 5 bench spots. I thought that we were going 16 rounds. It must not have updated properly. I apologize for that, everybody. We were supposed to go 16 rounds. Oh, well. Okay, where are we now? Yeah, I mean, this is the conversation that we're going to have tomorrow night. What kind of build works? Because in a 10-teamer, there's plenty of quarterbacks for everyone to have 3. And if they're a little bit cheaper, man, you can just hammer running back and wide receiver. And the thing I preach about all the time in Superflex, again, that we'll talk about tomorrow night more in depth, is that you have a par sheet, so you know what you're going to spend. And other people don't. And so I talk about all the time about renting space in people's mind. And that is that if you leave a player on the board, it rents space in their mind. And if people don't have their quarterbacks, they tend to not want to pay for those running back, wide receiver, tight end, those top level players because they're sitting there thinking, God, I still need my quarterbacks. But for you, you know what you can spend, and you'll know it when you see it. You'll know the deal when it comes. So you can focus on the other positions. And I always tell people, my idea of auctions is get your guys out early, right? But in Superflex, that may be a little bit different as far as quarterback goes. I want to get other positions out early. I want to hammer other positions because I think that provides an opportunity for you to get some deals that almost, it's almost like a sitting down bonus, but it's like an extended sitting down bonus when people don't have their quarterbacks. And they just kind of sit there and go, I need a quarterback. I can't pay 38 for Justin Jefferson. And then you end up with these insane deals, but you know what you're going to pay. And if a guy comes up for that price on your par sheet, you're just going to pay for him because we're player agnostic, right? Right? Am I right? Okay. Folks, we got about 5 minutes left on the stream. Well, I'm not going to force you to sit through some kicker and defense nominations here. We're going to see what position players go for at the end, and then we're going to wrap it up here in the next 5 minutes. So thank you everybody for coming on tonight. All the comments were awesome. We had a very active chat. I love that. I'm excited to see what numbers we drew here on the YouTube channel. And I think I'll be streaming it on Twitter tomorrow night as well. So you can find it anywhere. And this has been a really fun start to the Salary Cap Summit. And again, it's just my way of putting auctions front and center. And I'm never going to stop talking about going zero wide receiver. He went crazy zero wide receiver. Henry did in the 5-hole, but he ends up with Rome Odunze, Cortland Sutton, Khalil Shakir, Matthew Golden, and Michael Wilson. Not terrible for, as he calls it, insane zero RB. Totally agree. But yeah, so everybody, thank you so much for being out tonight on the stream. This has been an absolute blast. The chat's been active. It's been super fun to interact with all of you. Thank you to the drafters who did this, because this is not an easy thing to do. So listen to me blasting your picks while you're doing this and having to juggle all of it, listening to the stream, criticize things and whatever. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody for being here. And look, I'm always going to push auctions. I'm always going to push salary cap drafts. It is my passion, and I'm never going to stop. And I hope that we can talk some more. I teased it earlier, and we didn't get to talk about it very much. So we'll do that tomorrow night, and we're going to do it with the panel. But what can we do to make auctions bigger? What can we do that is going to push us front and center over serpentine drafts? Because I just believe serpentine drafts are not the way we should be playing fantasy football. And hey, folks, just to remind you, you need to come out of the draft with a defense. I understand this is a mistake on Team 8's or 9's part there, 8 or 9, I forget who, Brady. But I've got Team 12 here with no defense as well. You have to have a defense. You're going to have to drop somebody and pick up a defense immediately after the draft. This is a kicker and defense league, so you need to come out of the draft with a final starting lineup. So, yeah, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you so much. Thanks for being here. I hope I see you guys tomorrow night, some of the same names in the chat. Again, Superflex draft tomorrow night. Don't miss the auction panel on Tuesday night. I'm going to let the experts loose on your draft board, and they can tell me what they think about it. And I think that'll be pretty fun to talk to them and see what they think about this stuff. Yeah, and I think this is a great point. It makes you feel comfortable. And you know how often I hear this too? People say all the time, I've never done one. I'm not, they take long. There's a lot of excuses, and not very many of the excuses in my mind mean that you shouldn't try it. And one of the best things you can do is jump into a mock with some of the people from my Patreon network. I do them all the time. You should just get in one and do one. And even if you've never done one, it's for $0. You're not even playing the league out. It's just a mock. And these mocks are very helpful in getting your feet wet and finding out what it is that you like or don't like about them. And I think that this comment is perfect because it's just an unknown. And I don't want it to be an unknown anymore. So I hope I have the support of all of you out there in making this more important, that we push this format forward. And yes, Chad, this is part of it too, because it takes work. It takes work. And I tend to forget that about auctions. And I'll leave you with all of you with this note, that sometimes auctions are more difficult, and people don't want difficult. They want fun. And I'm cool with that. That is totally cool, because fantasy football is supposed to be fun. But I know that a lot of the people that follow me, that listen to the auction brief, that love auctions, and that really spend time preparing and doing par sheets and working hard before the draft, I know that a lot of times people, yeah, I agree, Mason. Auctions don't take too long. 2 hours, baby. We're going to be in and out. Love it. But I know I know it's a barrier, and we're going to keep working on it. We're going to keep working on all the barriers. My mind is working on this stuff, and I think I'm going to have some stuff for you in an exciting off season. I can't get to it this year, but I've got some people behind the scenes working on stuff. Folks, that's it. We crushed this auction in 2 hours flat. I can't believe it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. that's going to do it for tonight's stream. The Salary Cap Summit is just getting started. Come back tomorrow night, 7 Eastern, Superflex auction. We're going to have more insights, more takes on how to approach a Superflex auction, and more talk about nomination strategies, bidding strategies, my belief about certain players and their prices as they go off the board. This is fun stuff. I love it. Thank you all for supporting me, and thank you all for being here tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same place. Let's run it back. Love y'all. Thank you for being here.